we would like to actually involve you, our dear audience. You might have questions. Maybe there are already some questions from Twitter. And otherwise, we'll go around with the microphones. Please be brief in 2 to 3 sentences your question, because there will be others who also would like to speak. But Melanie, are there some questions on Twitter already?
Yes, there are. And one, for example, is, just need to. So, Sunnie, you said that you have to participate in the dialogue online. So how do you deal with backlash and haters hating behind their keyboards or not even being real people?
Well, I mean, I think there's no one way of dealing with it. There is a good amount of discussion online where people share how they go about dealing with that particular aspect. I actually find, for the most part, that at least on the topics and discussions I've been engaged with, and in my particular Twitter sphere, which I admit is definitely a bubble, that the backlash hasn't been absolutely terrible. Like, I have never been part of a ridiculous shitstorm like some journalists have. So I can't really speak to that particular aspect. What I do find is similar to all types of feedback. At the end of the day, and this is something, I used to play a lot of basketball, and I remember my Coach Hans, at age 15 in the trainings camp in Tenero, telling me after things were just not going well, let's put it that way. And he was very vocal, sort of imagine twice the size of me in all directions and dimensions, very vocally telling me that I was screwing up and, more or less you suck. And I wasn't doing well with that feedback. I mean, it was physical. So, I mean, physical in the sense of in the physical world, it wasn't digital, but it still was a good amount of backlash that I just didn't want to, didn't want. And I remember him taking me by the side and telling me, Sunnie, as long as I'm talking with you, I care that you improve. It's when I don't talk to you that it's a problem, because then I don't care anymore. And that fundamentally has shaped how I think about all kinds of feedback, no matter what format it takes. Because to me, like, what I try to see in all of it is, here's somebody who cares, and maybe is, at least from his perspective, wanting to help me become better. Now, whether or not I take that or not is totally up to me. But it definitely has helped me get through, or at least helped me recognize sort of the best part in the crappy feedback, which is sometimes the intention. And sometimes it's just crappy feedback, and you should just, let it go, in here, out there. That's okay.
So there is also another question that says, what are your experiences so far and recommendation to disrupt gender bias in your businesses?
To whom is this question?
To anyone. It's not
to anyone. So how do you disrupt gender bias?
In your own businesses.
Easy question for me. Let's do 50-50 BBC challenge. So they had really, what they managed to do at BBC, they had like they put up a challenge within a year to have female and male experts, 50-50, and it wasn't like a quota or something forced, so it was like, everybody could team in, and the 500 teams were part of it, and within a year, they had 75% of all the teams at BBC, even BBC Sports and BBC Arabic, they managed to get 50-50. And we are far away in Switzerland. We have 80% of the people in the media, they are male. In the business section, even more.
So let's achieve the same as BBC Arabia.
Yeah. Maybe next mission.
Maybe there is, we intertwine it with a question from the audience. Is there somebody who wants to ask a live question?
Can I add something as well?
Or sorry, one more. Claudia would like to add something.
Because I think it's really important. We need more women in leadership positions. I'm convinced that as long as we continue to have 5% of women leading Fortune 500 companies, if we continue to have maximum 10% in any other company in countries that are maybe not the Nordic countries, it's really difficult to make a change. We were discussing that with Simone before we stepped on stage. Something that I heard many times when I was interviewing for a role, or when I'm interviewing someone and I'm sitting on a panel, that kind of obvious feedback towards a female candidate, she lacks the executive presence. She lacks the gravitas. And why is that? Because we are used to put executive presence as a synonymous of a white male who's tall, wears a tie, and looks good in that kind of suit. But this is not executive presence. It's maybe one type of executive presence. You might have very different types of executive presence, right? It's just that as long as we don't have enough examples at the top of what being a leader means, it's just normal that we continue to recruit exactly more of the same, so more male. I'm sorry for that. I think we need to push stronger. I'm not sure if quotas is the right answer. Maybe it is for a period of time, maybe it's not, but we need to push more female leaders. It gives people a role model, it gives people a courage to apply as well, and most of all, it changes the mindset in the male population, because without the male population, the male leaders changing their mind, we won't achieve any change. It's not.
So we have one live question here.
Yeah, probably just to add to that, Claudia, but the question, if you look back the past 10 years, it hasn't really improved. In some companies even got worse on the top levels. So how can we address that problem?
I mean, some very tangible examples are, Swiss Re is trying to apply them, and I'm really very focused on that specifically, is to have always diverse panels. So if I'm recruiting or my colleagues are recruiting, they really try to have interviewers that are, gender diverse, right? So that gives you already some sort of guarantee that there will be compensation for some biases. We ask for diverse candidate slate, so not everyone coming from the same region with the same background, with the same education and the same gender, same age, you name it. I think there are practical means to really do that. I don't think it's mission impossible, but you need to want it. And maybe it takes longer to go for a recruiting or for a successful position filling than it would otherwise. But just to give you two examples, we have now two youngish women, so in their 40s, leading Italy and Germany. We've been looking for a long time, actually, to fill one of the positions. Same applied to Switzerland. And it was almost impossible to find candidates. So sometimes you really need to go and shake some of the female talents as well. We need to admit that we sometimes also want to be asked. But you need to actively make a step, right, and not be satisfied with your candidate slate until you really have a diverse panel. And it takes some time, it takes some effort, but it's possible. It's possible. Does that answer your question?
Yes, and do you think men do that as well? Take that effort?
I see more and more. I mean, I'm quite positive. I'm encouraged. I think that maybe not all companies are like the big corporates. I think there is some form of self-promoting as well in taking a politically correct stance in this question. But I think the awareness is increasing. Maybe we are working for the next generation. Maybe our daughters will have a better starting point. Let's hope that this is the case. But I think the mentality is changing. I don't know if, yeah.
Maybe I can add a little bit to that. I was very positively surprised that in the last 3 years we had more and more requests from clients from all types of industries, particularly from Switzerland, but also in the entire DACH region, for really having a full long list with mostly female candidates in. So there is certainly a demand for more female talent, and some, I must say, honestly, some I feel that it's just a ticking the box exercise, but the majority has really bought into the business case for diversity and also into the more cultural case for diversity.
More questions here. Yeah, there's one.
So I think the low female ratios in our working population is also a specific problem in Switzerland compared to other countries. So Patrizia, you already mentioned the very expensive childcare or early childcare, but what other focus area do you think we should invest our time to increase our gender diversity specifically in Switzerland?
The basic conditions, you mean, what we have to change. I think it's really the crucial one is parental leave, because this is really discriminating one part of the game, and this is the female part. Because if you have people between, or a man and a woman between 30 and 40, and you have to make a rational decision, you're a boss, and there is a project, and you can't really miss anyone for a couple of months. So you have, if in the system we are in here in Switzerland, you have to choose the man, because there is no parental and equal shared Elternzeit. This would be good, as we have it in so many other European countries, but this is really discriminating.
Maybe if I can just add to that, Swiss Re introduced end of last year extended parental leave, exactly on this point, for the secondary carer, I think we called it. So it's not automatically the father or the mother, it's the choice, right? So it's up to 8 weeks. It's not the whole world, but it's the first step. And many people, when we pushed for it in the Diversity Council, told us, well, this is society bias against that. So you will see that fathers won't actually benefit of this. They won't take it because they don't want to look bad towards the boss. Now, if I look at the birth statistics for 2019 till now, nearly 50%, actually a bit more than 50% of fathers seem to be willing to take the extended leave in full, right? And I mean, this is great news. So I think there is a lot of demand out there. We have a responsibility, I think, and here again, back to maybe big corporates, it's easier for us to do it than the small, medium enterprise. But we have a responsibility towards society to take steps like this, and parental leave is a key one. I agree.
That's a unique selling point now for them, if they can offer that. But there are not so many smart ones out there to copy you yet.
Yeah, it's a step. Yeah, it takes some time.
So we have a question here in the middle.
Yes. In my IT apprenticeship, we started with 7 guys and 3 girls. All guys still work on the job. None of the girls still work on the job. Are guys just less self-conscious and more stubborn about their career choices? And it's not directed the question. Feel free to answer.
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
The question was, are guys just less self-conscious and more stubborn about their career choices than girls?
Less self-conscious.
Do you need more context? So we started in my IT apprenticeship, we started with 10 people, 7 guys and 3 girls. And none of the girls are still on the job. So that's where the question comes from. So do the girls just do what they love, what they are passionate about as their career choice?
For you, Petra.
Maybe for Sunnie, yeah?
Or the ETH, I mean, there you have really, you're the only one, or female.
One of the few.
Of the few. And you did it, so.
Yeah, I think I think it definitely has some impact on what society believes, because when I studied mechanical engineering, I mean, even now, if I tell that I studied that, I get questions, oh, wow, and surprises. And I think there is this entire pressure. It's not because of competence or lack of competence, but it's because there is not that much expectation that they do it. And they might get always this weird question, so you do an IT apprenticeship, so why? And maybe they drop out because of that.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of, if I can just add one thing, like, I mean, it goes back to this idea, like, if we, back to this slide of people who help you succeed. And everybody, each one of us here could go back tonight and could put a slide together of the people that are helping you, that are pushing you forward. And I think that there might be, I think it's, your sample size is tiny. Sure. So it's very hard to extrapolate from, 10 people for the larger society. So there's a caveat there that your experience might not be true for the rest. Anyways.
But there is research actually very interesting. It's a good point actually, because they showed if you teach physics, for example, differently, then females stay there and they're more interested. You have to start, for example, not with mechanics, because mechanics is but with optics, and they really could prove that. So if there are different topics which really fascinates women more, and I live together with 3 men, and I really see that they're very different, and I'm really grateful that I had a sister, and now I get to know, more, like my sons, I get to know men better. And I really see, I mean, they started with 9 months just putting out like cranes or scaffoldings and building sites. They wanted to watch, and I never did it when I was young. And you really see huge differences. And they had this, for machines, the fascination for cars. And it's so typically, and I always wanted to raise them gender neutral, but they're not neutral. I mean, neuroscientists, they prove us that it even starts as they're babies. You can do experiments with them when they're 3 months old. I mean, which focus female babies, they will watch your face, and male babies, they watch the thing which moves most speedy. And they really do that. And I did these experiments with my sons, and it's like this. And of course, and then I think men, they really have this attraction to machines. So it's also a way how you teach topics. And IT, there has to be disrupted way of teaching as well. And I think Sunnie mentioned it at the beginning, that it should be maybe more creative approach to these kind of things as well.
Maybe it's that. Thank you.
Maybe I want to add something, because you mentioned the way of teaching is important. I remember when I was visiting different universities, we were in Karlsruhe to see how what mechanical engineering professors do there. And there were a bunch of students presenting their projects. And I was sitting in that audience, maybe, I don't know, 10% women, like 300 guys. And they had a slide up there, the size of this one, where they showed a demonstration of finite elemente modeling. And what they actually showed was a bra, how it goes up and down. And it starts there. But okay, we know there are a bunch of more questions. There was one also here in the middle. You can go next.
Yes,
sure, thank you.
This question is to Claudia. How do you deal with politics? I noticed the longer my career, the more politics. I feel like we're in a modernized world, we are digitalization and everything, but politics are still quite strong, especially in a male-dominated environment. How can you deal with that if you hate that? I mean, you notice that your male colleagues, same experience, same age, same languages, everything, but they got preferred because they say, you are the greatest boss, you're an awesome boss, your wife is amazing boss, and you just do your job as good as you can. And even better than your male colleagues, but they get promoted and you don't get promoted.
Yeah, no, how I deal with that, not very well, I think. If I had to put on a list of things that I can do better, I can still grow in, I think that could be one of them. And in fact, I'm also using sometimes the situations I'm in, or my bosses or my peers, to learn on those things. What I mentioned at the beginning about trying to strike alliances before you bring topics, because the convincing alone based on the topic sometimes is not the most effective way. Yes, so that is something that I learned at my expenses. I also learned that sometimes, I'm from Italy, so I'm not shy to sometimes go a bit more into conflict, or I have a bit more of a temper maybe than some others, so I bring conflict up. And I think it's not bad in itself to have some degree of tension as well. If you're in the management team or in a board meeting and we disagree, why not? It doesn't need to be always consensus driven. I learned at my expenses as well that in Switzerland is not something that people appreciate a lot. So you rather do your job and your homework before you go into the meeting. You talk to stakeholder 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Maybe you do another loop just to be on the safe side. And then you go into the meeting and everything runs smoothly. This is not my nature. I had to learn. I'm still not very good at it. I think I can do more. I can do better. I think in corporates you always have a certain degree of politics. You're absolutely right. I think Swiss Re is still a fairly technical company, so people are valued as well based on the expertise, which has good and positive and negative sides. But there is politics, and I'm afraid there's no way to really completely shut it down. I think, on the other hand, that the teams appreciate a lot when people are authentic. And someone said before, don't try and kind of fake yourself, but because people will see through, and that's true. So I still try to be authentic and loyal to myself and what I believe, and do just the necessary bit of political gaming if it helps.
Can I maybe add something to that? Because I think it's a very interesting point. Our research and also experience when working with the female talents in big corporates, but also in smaller corporations, shows is that they are a bit less political savvy, as we call it. And what helps a lot, so I'm not good at politics, not at all. I lack this sense and this strive for power. It just completely evades me. But it helps to find someone who is very good at playing these games, and very good at helping or having a source of power base, and learn from these people how they think of it. It's not to say encourage you to become like them, but just to strengthen your awareness how things might, how others might perceive certain situations.
Thank you. We are running out of time. You have the microphone already. You get our last question of tonight, and then afterwards we'll have Apple, where you still can ask all our big boss ladies.
So thank you very much for that. I have a question that I have been thinking about a lot, and I still don't have the answer for it, so maybe you can help me. So my question is, shouldn't we stop labeling ourselves as females all the time? Because, look at how this event is called, Big Boss Ladies. Why did we had to stress out that it's for ladies? At the company where I work, we have a program which is called Future Female Leaders. Why do we have to point out that it's for female leaders? I just want to be a future leader. I just want to be a human being. When should we stop labeling ourselves and establishing this binary thinking even more?
Sure. Great question.
I have to admit that I really love that question, because I felt exactly the same way when I got the invitation. But I also felt like apparently we're still in a world where this matters. And while, I think one way, so whenever I tried to talk about this event. I oftentimes try to talk about a reality, and this is sort of typical, stereotypical entrepreneur, but like we like to think of things how they should be, and we pretend so long that we are already in the future where we should be, and we pitch to everyone how this future should look like, that at some point it actually ends up being the truth and the reality of things. And so in that spirit, I oftentimes find myself doing exactly what you said, which is, this is a fantastic leader. This is a fantastic person who's got great skills, and it's a person, female, male, doesn't matter. And I think that is the world we should strive for, where it absolutely doesn't matter. It's just someone who's great. The unfortunate reality, and that's sort of where, Patrizia is about to probably come back with like 50 statistics, is like, we're really not there. So I think as long as we're not there, we can't just pretend and take that conversation completely off the stage. And I think it's important to have the conversation. But I also think that, whenever you are in a position of leadership, that, there is value in just doing it and just living it, and not constantly remarking, at least for myself, that I am a female leader. I'm a leader. I'm on a board. I'm a board member. I'm not a female board member. I'm a board member. And I think that's something where I try to also educate people in my surroundings, because I want to be in a world where this is completely normal and nobody blinks an eye.
Nicely said. Let's leave it there. We strive for this world. That's why we are here. So thank you all very much for your questions. Thank you all for being here. It's getting time to get some refreshment and some apéro. But most importantly, we would like to say thank you to Swiss Re Institute and IPDQ. So we have flowers for you, Remo, and for Tobias, Andy, and the entire staff who is here and made this evening so beautiful. Please come here. And a round of applause. We also want to thank our supporters, most importantly Silvana. You have seen her at the entrance. And there's also flowers for you, Tobias. You just came here on time. Big round of applause for you. Also, Silvana, I mentioned, and George, who is our fantastic photographer. We work very heavily with him for our WeShape Tech events. And before we go into the next things, we want to announce a few events. So, as Patrizia mentioned, there is the sheknows.ch. Sign up, become an expert, become visible. We'll have a crash course on machine learning on August 21st. Life cycle on innovation on September 19th. Another round of Big Boss ladies, still ladies, but eventually it's called Big Boss in November. And please sign up to our newsletters. But now we would like to thank our fantastic panel members with beautiful flowers.
Thank you.
So thank you very much for being here. We'll proceed now to the apéro, and thank you once more for being here as panel members. Thank you.